In the modern world, winter is a season. In the medieval world, it was a threat, a force, a slow creeping hunger that came with wind and silence. There were no thermostats, no radiators, no second chances. You didn't wait for the power to come back, because there was no power. You didn't turn on the heat. You built it layer by layer from memory. Today, we complain when the house dips below 65, but once people survived in homes made of mudstone and smoke, they fought frostbite with ash. They cooked warmth into every meal, and they learned not just how to endure the cold, but how to live inside it. This is not a list of tricks. This is a day in the life of a medieval family that refused to freeze. Before the sun, before the birds, before the frost on the fields had even cracked, the house began to stir. It wasn't much of a house. Half buried in the slope of a hill, its roof sagged under frozen thatch. Its walls were made of dirt stone and stubbornness, and its only door faced away from the wind, because that's how you build when warmth is a memory, not a guarantee. Technique 1, Earthwalled winter homes. The house stood only 4 feet above ground, but 3 feet below it. This wasn't by accident. It was survival architecture. Medieval peasants dug down into the earth before they built up. Why? Because the ground didn't change its mind. 3 feet deep, and the temperature stayed steady. Around 50 degrees Celsius of 10 degrees C, even in the dead of winter. They didn't know the term geothermal stability. They just knew it worked. Walls were packed with mud, straw, and stone, anything that could hold together and hold back the cold. Every gap was stuffed with what they had: manure, moss, old cloth. They sealed their homes not with wealth, but with waste. And it worked. The roof wasn't just a roof. It was a layered shield: branches, straw, turf. Sometimes even with grass growing on top. Not for looks, for roots. To hold the warmth in and the snow out. And they didn't build tall, they built low. Low ceilings meant less space to heat, less air to lose, more chance of waking up with all your fingers intact. This was not a comfortable home, but it was a warm one. By medieval standards, that meant one thing: you didn't die in your sleep. Technique 2, Ashbed Ember banking. Inside it was dark, not the peaceful dark of night, but the smoky, heavy dark of a place where fire had burned all night long. Not with flames, with embers. In the center of the room was a shallow pit rimmed with stone. Last night's fire was gone, but beneath the ash, something still lived. The father knelt beside it, his breath visible in the air. He moved the top layer gently, carefully, until the dull red of a single ember emerged like a buried heart still beating. No sparks, no steel, just memory and method. This was ember banking, the oldest form of fire preservation. You didn't put your fire out at night. You tucked it in, cover it in inches of dry ash, let it sleep but not die. In the morning, you uncover it, blow, feed it, and fire is reborn. It sounds simple. It wasn't. Lose the ember and you weren't just cold. You were desperate. One medieval tale tells of a man who lost his ember and had to run barefoot across a frozen field with a coal borrowed from a neighbor carried in a hollow turnip. Not because he was crazy, but because he didn't want to bury his children by spring. Modern bushcrafters still use ember banking because it works. And when your life depends on heat, starting from scratch is a gamble, but saving it, that's survival. The fire was growing, not raging, not dancing, but steady, controlled. Warmth, when you only had so much fuel, had to be rationed like bread. While the mother stirred yesterday's stew back to life, the oldest son was already pulling stones from under the ashes. Technique 3, heated sleeping stones. They were smooth river stones, each one hand-selected during the summer. Not too large, not too porous. Big enough to hold heat, small enough not to crack. The night before, they had been laid in the edge of the fire, not directly in the flames, but nestled in hot ash, cooking slowly, silently. By morning, they radiated a deep, penetrating heat. Not flashy, but real. Wrapped in wool scraps or leather, these stones were placed at the foot of each sleeping space, under straw, beside ribs, near fingers, anywhere blood moved slowest, anywhere death liked to start. Modern science calls it thermal mass retention. Peasants didn't. They just knew. If the stone stayed warm till dawn, so did the child beside it. Archaeological digs in medieval French homes have uncovered fire-blackened stones near sleeping areas. Not trash. Tools. Quiet tools in a war against the cold. They didn't use hot water bottles. They used geology. And if one cracked in the fire, it wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a loss of heat. A risk. A reminder that everything, even rocks, had to be chosen wisely. You've just walked through a day without electricity, without thermostats, without a safety net. But they made it. Not with comfort, with calculation. They dug into the earth. They wrapped themselves in fat and fire. They turned rocks into radiators, animals into heaters, and memory into heat. There was no app, no backup generator, just knowledge passed from hand to hand, breath to breath, ember to ember. We call these primitive techniques, but they weren't primitive. They were proven, tested by the coldest nights, refined by necessity, held together by repetition. When the grid fails, when supply chains break, what you remember may matter more than what you own. Old warmth doesn't come from power, it comes from memory. So if you're still listening, remember this: you are the ember now, and someone will need your fire. Subscribe if you believe memory is the most powerful survival tool we still have.